Howdy, everybody. Oh, we already have people in the chat. Hi, Lyra. How's it going? Let's see. My IRC actually crashed, so you may have to resend. I just realized a little bit ago that it had crashed. So, oh, okay. Let me make sure my mic is going. It looks like it's going. Things should be okay. I'm gonna drop the music just a tad. There we go. I will take a look in a bit. Oh, thank you. Okay. Right now, I've got a presentation to work on. Let's see. Excuse me. Right. We were in the middle of doing the presentation. We were working on outlining. So we had a couple pages of outlines worked on. And I think I listened to a podcast and a couple things clicked into place that I think will be helpful in this presentation. The presentation in question, or the podcast in question, is the You Are Not So Smart podcast. And it was talking about, I forget her name. Probably should pull that up. Meaningful. This is what Google's for. Annie Murphy Paul, who wrote a book called The Extended Mind, talking about kind of the external things that we use that become part of our brains effectively, or at least certainly part of our systems of thinking. And she mentioned a couple things that I think are going to be really helpful in framing some of this stuff, especially given that I have to talk to a general audience. And actually, let me open that link Lyra sent before I forget. Thank you. Right. So what she talked about was, and I haven't finished the episode entirely, but at the beginning of the episode, she starts talking about this thing called neurocentric bias that we tend to, especially since the age of having figured things out, like since the 80s, basically, we've really honed in on the brain and what the brain does, and brains do this and brains do that. And I'm guilty of this as anybody, probably more so. But she talks about it in the sense that the brain is part of a system. It certainly is a thing that I say, but it's part of not just a system in the body, it's a system, it's part of a number of other systems that affect it and that it can become part of and that it can make use of. One of the best examples of this is probably the phenomenon, and I don't remember the exact terminology yet. It's effectively shared memory, where you effectively offload something into somebody else's brain. You'll see this happen on software development teams all the time, where it's, oh, I don't know how that works. That's Bob's area, or that's Alice's area, or, that's Eve's thing. She does that. Eve is the one who handles all the CSS. She's the wizard at it. I know basic CSS. If I have a question, I go to Eve. Humans do this naturally. They start figuring out what their expertise is and specializing effectively. And then you don't have to remember those things. You just remember the pointer, and it's like, oh, I go talk to that person. We do the exact same thing with books, or we used to, where it was, oh, I don't remember what thing was. I remember where in the library that book is. If you own a personal, rich enough to own a personal library. And if you were now in the modern era, we use Google. And so it's, I don't remember what that is. I remember the exact search term. And I've noticed this a ton myself. You'll like, crud, I gotta go search that again. You remember the exact search term, and it's the first link, and it's purple. It's like, yep, but I can't remember what the heck it actually was. Anyhow, neurocentric bias is that. She mentions a perfect example that is going to be an amazing thing to drag into the talk, which is basically like, or I think it was actually David McCraney, who's the podcast host, mentions it. He says, like, did you use an alarm to wake up this morning? That's a perfect, like, raise your hand if you use an alarm to wake up this morning. Brains have limitations. That's a perfect summary, like, just right there. It lets me lead into more than just the stuff that I'm talking about here. It's a better lead into the Walled Garden of the Dark Forest piece. and it lets me talk about why uh, your cognitive brain is affected by the emotional brain. So that I need to get in here. This is what's fun about this stuff, is that hearing things, learning things, and then finding ways that it meshes with the stuff that you're working on, and getting it into place. Okay, so how do I pivot from this? Because I was going in this way, talking about trauma, which all is good stuff, and I want to leave. But what do I want to do with this? Get to the right place. Talk about this, talk about all of the history of that. Now we talk about trauma. Okay, so we can probably go from there into a okay, yes. Go away. Where did my... There it is. Losing track of my own notes. All right, I'm gonna have to massage this one. I don't know if it's a slide, but I'm gonna need to massage that point because it's not. Okay, that lets me put that part in. I'm going to pivot that, switch those around. The brain has its limits. Brain by itself has its limits. I don't want to italicize that. And actually, Lyra should be really excited about me mentioning the extended mind, because that's actually a concept that came out of philosophy and made its way into kind of psychology and neuroscience. Um, and a concept that was laughed at when it came out. I don't remember. She mentioned when it came out. It didn't click because dates don't stick well in my head. But okay, use the extended mind, system, structures, and people around you. Okay. Let me put that down in my notes. Okay. All right, to get past those, you use the extended mind, systems and things around you. Okay. Just to jot that down so I don't lose it. And a thought. I'm gonna have to massage that metaphor to fit right, but I think it's not bad, at least as a start. There's a bunch of things I'm going to need to pull some citations on that are obvious to me in terms of connecting points, but not necessarily obvious in a broader sense. But that's part of the work of doing this, is I just need to find the actual citations. Don't want to go down that narrow hole because that'll just muddy the waters when I want to talk about the other metaphor. Don't want to throw too many metaphors at the door. So what do I at the wall, I guess. So what do I want to do here? I want to pull in Norman's stuff where he talks about this. Oh no, wait, I can pull in Norman later. Okay. Okay, and I can do that because I can just say that we might not even notice. Here's why. Nope, what are you doing? This is awesome. We're getting 2 different outline slides with wide. Okay, now we're onto this. So let's, just so it's not searing me in the eyes, switch it back to a concrete outline marker. Daniel Dennett and Andy Clark. Philosophy of mind stuff is amazing. I just think it's funny to see that make its way from philosophy. I also think it's funny to see that it was banned at first. Like, that they turned around and they're like, that can't be a thing, you guys are stupid. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that when that theory was created, like, given the time frame she was talking about, we knew that humans did this behavior. Like, you can go back to Socrates and hear him complaining about the youth these days not memorizing the odes and reading these newfangled book things because they'll make them forget how to do that. Like, it's like, yes. Because that's how brains do. Okay. Where do we go from here? Okay, so I need to frame this up. Talk about walled garden in the dark forest. Oh, that's going to be weird. Do I want to use the word brain here, or do I want to use the word mind? That's a tonal thing that I'll have to think about. I would absolutely use brain most of the time, but given the content here, I might want to pivot. I'll just do brain right now and we can always fill it back later. Drinking straight out of 2-liter like a classy boy. What do I want to do? I know how I would do this in conversation, but I don't know what the best way to lead in from this to the concept is to the actual thing. Okay. Well, in the current context, I'm talking about how the how you do this kind of unconsciously. I mean, we do things like the extended mind unconsciously. Um, People live or die by day planners or to-do lists or their systems that they build up around themselves. Um, the point here that I'm going for in this particular conversation is about when those systems start to fall down, when things that we have taken for granted, or systems that we have, routines, habits, these things are those external systems. When those things begin to fall apart, like, what happened in the last year and a half. That's kind of where I'm going with that. In this particular piece, I'm just trying to figure out how to actually pitch the metaphor in a way that isn't overly cognitive. Maybe we just pitch it straight like this. So no, so the metaphor of the walled garden and the dark forest is that your conscious brain your conscious intentional self is inside the walled garden, and outside it is the dark forest. And these are really tall, really thick walls, actually. And what we understand is that you can, or what we don't understand rather, is that you can communicate with the things in the dark forest by chucking things over the wall, basically. Writing things on rocks and throwing them over the wall. And they'll write things on rocks and throw them back, but you can't communicate with them directly. You can't see what they're doing. That's effectively the percentage you're kind of looking at in terms of the way your brain is split between conscious things, intentional things, and these autonomous processes that you don't really have any control over and don't understand what they're doing. And all you could do to inspect them, to look at them, like, you can't get outside the walls. You can't find out what they're actually doing. All you could do is write different things on them and see what happens, see what they throw back, and interrogate them that way, try and understand what's going on. But what's happening is, what can happen is that the things in the dark forest are out there, and they can, like, the metaphor I tend to use is an extended piece of what this metaphor is from Gleb Sapersky, who's a psychologist. I tend to extend them, have been extending the metaphor to go, look, there's also wolves in the dark forest, and sometimes they're right outside the walls howling. And it makes it really hard for anybody in the garden to actually think about anything else. That's kind of the metaphor I'm playing with here. And I'm just trying to figure out how to pitch that in terms of slides. Oh, where is a... Instead of rock, the rocks thing is complex. Just go with messages. That seems clearer. Um, no, you're right. There's definitely a point when your brain has internalized something and kicks it over to the, well, if it's a physical skill, then it kicks it over to the basal ganglia, or if it's, in either way, it relegates the process to kind of the autonomous functions, and you are, moves the brain back into the default mode network, which is where it likes to be. It's an interesting note about the emotional skills. Let's think about that. I think that's probably true. There's probably a I see. Yes, that's definitely something that's true. And those things are definitely kept in the dark forest. Those learned emotional valences about the world, right? They're not really skills, they're more just facts or assumptions that we've learned to be true. And that means, like you said, training the dark forest to not think those things, to not believe those things is really hard, because you can't know. what's out there. Like, you can't just fix it, and you can't just not think the thing. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that front. How much do I need to push on this? Mm. Hmm. So, what I'm curious about now is there's two ways I think for me to frame the emotional, uh, I don't know, not emotional contagion, but kind of the emotional overload piece of this. One is the way that I was framing it in before when I was talking about it, which is, they're wolves, they're right outside right outside the walls, and they're howling. That has a certain emotional valence to it that I like a lot. Um, but the other thing that I'm wondering about that might be a clearer piece of the metaphor is it's really more the dark forest just kind of pelting you with messages. You can't do anything else because it won't stop. Um, I'm not sure which one's clear there. To answer your question, Lyra, the talk is about um, not just reading the messages, it's about kind of managing, it's using that metaphor as a way to manage emotional states, or manage when, I mean, basically crap like the last year and a half, where you acknowledging, okay, this is true, that now I can't stop the dark force from doing what it's doing. I can, but it takes a lot of time and effort and energy and training, and even then, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you're just going to think dumb things or have a bunch of emotions. So, the best you can do in those situations is acknowledge that this is a thing that is going to happen and recognize that you can't do anything in that moment about it. Aside from potentially setting up these external systems, which is why I'm really glad that I found that podcast, because it gives me a good way to frame that. Because a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about to kind of manage and mitigate those situations are that sort of thing, setting up those external situations, external systems that you can rely on that aren't you having to do a thing. Hopefully that's clear. Okay, so still not sure which way I want to, like, maybe I do both. No, good. Thanks for dropping by, Lyra. I enjoyed the conversation. Have fun with your grandchildren. I probably won't be going too much longer. I just wanted to try and get over the hump and just keep working on this a little bit every day, or at least most days. Oof. What is that? Did you... What is even going on here? You did like an outline view. And that is not what I want. Normal. There we go. I don't know why this did what it did. Maybe... hate you. There. Okay, just do slide. It's fine. Okay, I think I'm hitting a wall. But we definitely got past a couple things. We're improving here. Let me change that to red so I know that it's not that. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reds. Still have 5 reds. We have 4 blues. Making more work for myself. All right, that's probably good for now. I might stream a little more tomorrow, probably just another short stream. Like I said, I'm just trying to get through and touch this and keep the wheels spinning and let my own autonomous self chew on it for a while and come up with good ideas that will help me flow and help this presentation flow. So thanks for watching if you're watching. I will, like I said, probably be back tomorrow. See you then.